years, and I've been teaching for 14.
And this is the first year you've jumped into this blended learning or flex or hybrid. We've had multiple names for this.
Correct. First year came up this summer when we, in the associates department, we were hemorrhaging with numbers because we were joining sophomores and juniors in the U.S. history classes, and so we needed any relief we could with class sizes. And I thought that if we did a hybrid class, we could theoretically have upwards of 50 kids in one of my classes, but the way the schedule works out, I would be able to work with 50 kids relatively easily, as easily as 35. So.
Okay. So initially the thought was, how do I deal with all the numbers?
Yeah, well, I've taught online before. I've trained on teaching online. I teach up at the community college, which is somewhat blended. There's a lot of work done on the Blackboard program, and when I found out that we were going to have Blackboard working with us, I decided to kind of think, what about U.S. history? I think this could possibly work, and so that's what got the balls rolling in my head about it.
Okay, so that's kind of the early part of one of my first questions: is what is the teacher's role in creating a blended classroom?
Teacher's role, I think you have to be very, very careful on making sure that it's going to be legitimate for the students. So knowing that the content that you're going to be using is going to be covering the critical information, that it is organized in a way that teenagers on a computer would probably be able to understand relatively easily, and as it turns out, easier and more effectively than me. And that with a blended learning, that the time that I have together with them is precious, and that you don't waste their time. You make sure you have a very clearly laid out set of skills that you want to work on when you have them face to face, so then they understand that while the content is online and done at their own pace and flexible in that regard, that they're going to be applying what they're learning, and they're going to be tested on it, and not tested assessments wise, but tested in writing, tested in oral speeches, and other methods that helps build skills in the classroom.
So thinking about this again, and we're hoping to expand this here at Summit, what skill sets would a teacher need to start and then manage a blended classroom?
A fantastic, ambitious administrative staff. Honestly, the fact that when we came together and I came up with this schedule, I gave nobody a chance that we were going to make this work. With the way the scheduling is, the way our scheduling program and our ESIS/Synergy was going, I didn't think there would be flexibility in that. So I really didn't vest a lot of hope that this was going to be able to pull it off. So administratively, that was very important. Having a important clerical staff that's going to deal with attendance issues for the kids that are in class or out of class. I think you need to have a strong technology base in the building as far as access to technology. We hadn't had it for the most part for the entire student body until we had the iPad pilot. Really actually has helped quite a bit. But I think those three things are huge. Students like the computer component, the technology component of it, so it's not really their necessarily need to be buying into going online. And I think there needs to be an understanding by students and parents that the class they're going to take is not just going to be online. There needs to be very clear communication on that. So.
Okay, great. What recommendations would you have for teachers who are interested as we start more classes next year?
Err on the side of caution. Don't do too much too soon. Take time to move the students into the technology portion of the class, in my case the Blackboard content curriculum, slowly, so you don't go too fast, the kids get frustrated, and then they check out. And then you've got a problem on your hands for the entire semester. I have found that instead of going too fast, you go slower. And the face-to-face is the same all year long, but moving into the technology part and the scheduling, which is somewhat difficult for some kids, and still to this day for a few kids, still difficult to keep track of, how to access certain things on the content technology online portion of the class, and least most of all, I think, is let them know that the teacher's on the ride as well with technology, because there's so much out of the control of the hands of the teacher, that when things do go awry, you laugh about it with the kids. And you're like, oh man, and you get mad about it with the kids, as opposed to trying to say, I control this, I'm your teacher, and and then having to make explanations and then make excuses. So
it sounds like there were some bumps and some interesting things that happened. Describe
Yes.
September. What was September like?
September was a bricks and mortar traditional. We had a normal schedule. I met them every day, got to know their faces. We had several projects. We did some writing samples, and they're like, when's the online going to start? I set a go live date for October 2nd, which was the first chance I felt comfortable that I was able to sign up all the kids in the weeks prior. Make sure they had an active Blackboard account, weed out the kids that had never, or identify the kids, not weed out, but identify the kids that did not have pre-existing online experience with those that do, and there's a different process to signing those people up. Those two things I think were big. Making sure the kids were ready to go live and that I was ready to go live was very important. I think it speaks to the legitimacy piece. If the kids don't feel like it's a legitimate experience, they're going to really check out. I haven't had many problems with parents. I didn't have any problems with parents at that point. They basically said, honey, you take this online course. So that was a little bit surprising. I thought I was going to have to be dealing with more parent communication and putting out some fires for parents that are a little worried. But beyond that, getting to know the students, getting to know their basic skill set, so when I see them face to face after they've gone online, I can kind of expect the kids that may be a little bit more difficult or have a little bit more a difficult type of time dealing with the organization, establishing the relationships first. So then when we go live and kind of go into that kind of adventurous world, I can identify and put out fires and help as needed.
Okay, so thinking where we are right now, 5-6 months into the school year, and thinking about the rest of the school year and next school year, what are some things you've learned that now you do differently, now that you've got a little experience under your belt?
I would do more front end before the school year starts, and I will do this next year, getting to know exactly what is compatible with the iPads and the technology that we have available. That's huge. That's 90% of the problems that I'm having from a technology standpoint is I'm hearing, not every day, but on and off, week to week, I'm hearing new things that are problematic with the content carrier, in this case Blackboard Peak, and iPad, the Blackboard carrier and iPhones. So that was an adventure that I would much rather have not had. But there was really no way for me, I was cutting my teeth. So when we start up in the fall this coming up years, I'm gonna solidify. I'm gonna say you will not use this type of computer because it's not gonna work, and you will never use those because I don't want to have this. You can only use these types for accessing the quizzes, for instance, because it's the quizzes and the tests that cause all sorts of with flash drive and such. So being more on top of what's compatible with what.
So can you comment on student engagement, both in the online and classroom aspects? You talked about establishing relationship and moving slowly at the beginning. Are students engaged in class and students engaged online? And
I think the level of engagement, interesting. I have small classes face to face because of the split schedule. I have 16 to 20 kids, which is just a dream in our building, our district, for a high school U.S. history class. And there's a.
So can I clarify just
Yes.
so that everybody knows, that's 16 to 20 per cohort, and you have two cohorts
Correct.
that embody one class?
Correct,
Okay.
yeah. There's 34 and 37 kids per class, and so you split those up. But there's a phenomenon that much smarter people know about and could probably give you specific quantities, but when you get kids that are used to being in big classes suddenly in smaller classes, their level of engagement kind of, they slow down and they kind of hide. I don't know the name of it, but people who are watching this probably have heard of it. So there is some coaxing that needs to take place. But once there is a face-to-face goal in mind, when we're in face-to-face, as far as if we're analyzing Reconstruction political cartoons, if we're using document-based questions to kind of support or undermine political opinions, they jump at it, and they come out of their shell to the most part. So I think for the most part, face-to-face, We do have some pretty engaged kids. They like the variety because they get something different every day.
Great. How would you measure success? Is this a success? Is this a success? And if so, from what angle and how would you
it's
measure
too
it?
early to measure success. I think I'm getting very similar success to high score, low score. I think looking at my grade book for this U.S. hybrid class, it's very similar to if it was going to be a straight U.S. history class, brick and mortar. It doesn't show that it's really much easier or much harder. I think the kids that are struggling in my class now would have struggled in other classes. So I think it's too early to measure success. I really
In terms
do.
of content?
In terms of content, I see skills. I have been able to see gradual improvement, but I can't automatically tie it to face-to-face. It's just still too early. So taking the entire year in its whole, I'll be able to say that my success in this class will be the same as any other type of class. I want to see change over time, and it's just to be a matter of me having a year's worth of assessments to measure, to see if it's stagnancy, if there's decreases, if there's increases in the kids' ability to write, persuade, analyze document-based questions and the like. The first semester we had several assessments, but then we've kind of tailed off because I've wanted to kind of go into the specific mock trials and the things that we do in a face-to-face level. So the assessments have kind of tailed off. So once again, I don't have enough data to tell you whether or not this has been a success. But I think the success will be met when I see overall improvement by as many kids as possible on the real key skills that I want them to learn, which is analyzing documents, being able to write persuasively, form a good, concise thesis to discuss, and to lay out an opinion on a difficult historical topic.
What if we were to think about this question from a non-content area, and we were thinking about other ancillary things that students might be learning?
Okay.
Would you see some successes from
Absolutely.
that angle?
Absolutely.
Maybe some surprises there?
Right. I've got, just with the communication that I have on a day-to-day basis with my students about the technology aspect, being able to check online, being able to be able to access the scores, to be able to have them be aware of their success in the class. When certain assignments are due, I post announcements 2 to 3 times a week to keep kids on schedule and understanding what's ahead. Some kids follow it really well. Other kids struggle a little bit. And I think the more that I help them with that, the better they're going to be prepared dealing with technology-based courses later in their high school years and for sure in college. I've had several students come to me and say, my brother graduated 2 years ago, and that's all he does for the most part in a lot of cases is communicate with teachers via online. Every college course that a lot of kids go to are heavily based in things like Blackboard, where 50% of the experience is online. So, this is about 50% online. So I think in that way I'm helping prepare kids. I haven't been able to assess that, but just from talking to kids, seeing the kids kind of get used to and feel more accustomed to using the internet for learning, I think that's a huge success so far.
So the last question is, what can administrators do to support teachers in a blended learning classroom environment?
Be flexible. I touched upon it earlier, but be flexible with the scheduling. Understand that it's to have a unique blended learning schedule in a relatively traditional building schedule is difficult, and it adds more work to different levels of employees, classified and certified. I think to show support to staff, make sure that the supportive staff, clerical staff, understand why it's going on, and to be a vocal proponent of it to parents who might be suspicious of it, who might be a little cynical of it, or might be sketchy about it, not sure if it's right for their child, to at least give it a try and to know that it's a good, viable option for kids to be able to promote it.
Okay. Patrick, thank you so much for the work that you do.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Awesome.